Hello there. I'm Born Medicated, and this is my little corner of YouTube. I have schizoaffective disorder, which is when you're bipolar and also suffer from schizophrenia. I found that I'm not alone with this illness, which makes me both happy because I have people I can connect and relate to, but it also makes me sad because others have to suffer from this. One reason I make YouTube videos is to help me feel like a part of a community and help me connect with people. Two of my all-time favorite authors are Alan Moore and H.P. Lovecraft, so you can imagine my excitement when I found Providence. And I liked it so much I decided to make some YouTube videos about it because I couldn't find any. But I didn't really think it all the way through because it means I have to do Neonomicon. I should have just done Doom Patrol videos, but that reminds me, if you're young, you probably shouldn't be watching this videos. If you want to be rebellious, go watch a Doom Patrol video. It's R-rated. I don't care for the end of this, and it only gets worse. So let's do this. First, I'd like to say the Lovecraftian DMT I've been mentioning is pronounced Aklo. I've been saying it wrong this entire time, and I would like to thank Linton Joe on Reddit for bringing this to my attention. This is one reason I do videos, to educate myself on things I've missed. Anyways, Neonomicon takes place 2 years after the events of Courtyard, where we meet Aldo Sachs, a racist, X-File type agent investigating weird murders where the bodies are cut up, opening like a flower. Undercover, he meets a strange dealer named Johnny Carcosa, who peddles necroporn, cock rings, and a white powder we learn is DMT-7. Well, the Fed has to meet Johnny back at his reptile cage smelling place in a courtyard at 3 a.m. He meets Carcosa's mama and buys 3 hits of Aklo without really knowing what it is. We learn that only after you snort DMT-7 that Aklo is a Lovecraftian word whispered in your ear. He buys 3 whispered words, with each sending him deeper into a Lovecraftian type hell. He leaves, entering a kind of time loop like Dr. Manhattan sees time. He goes home and flowers up his neighbor and landlord. Then I guess he drives back to Washington and tries to kill his boss, but they capture him only after he cut off his boss's hand. See my other videos for details. 2 years go by and the murders haven't stopped. The FBI has no idea what's happening. One reason is because Aldo just speaks Lovecraftian gibberish now. He hasn't gave the FBI anything this whole time. Then he shows a reaction when our Merrill mentions the Club Zalquith when he met Carcosa. The story now follows an agent Merrill Bears who is fresh back from sex addiction leave, and her partner, a great guy all around named Gordon Lamper. Long story short, they go undercover in the club to get Carcosa, and he escapes. They think through the drains underneath the club. Then they raid his house, which they should have just done in the first damn place. And he gets away again, this time fading into the graffiti on the courtyard's wall. Mama kills herself, too much pride to go home, whatever that means. Maybe we'll find out. Now we start the second book, and we find a bunch of Lovecraft references explained. So here we go. We start with the name Carcosa, because it's one of my favorites. It's first mentioned as a city in Ambrose Bierce, an inhabitant of Carcosa, but it's only barely described after it's destroyed by a guy who claimed he used to live there. Then the name blew up after Robert Chambers' A King in Yellow came out, and everyone and their mama used it a lot since. My favorite being George R. R. Martin's Carcosa in Far Off Essos, where a sorcerer lives who claims to be the 69th Yellow Emperor of Yeti. Now that sounds cool. Now we open with Mama's autopsy and a lot of info from Merrill. The goth punk rock singer of the Ulster Cats, Randolph Carter, and the feds going through Carcosa's pad. Do the kids still say pad? I don't know, whatever. Now, this is more info than we've gotten this whole time, so let's do this again. She thinks Carcosa is from Ambrose Bierce and says him and Robert Chambers were part of a group of writers that influenced each other. I think she's talking about the whole Cthulhu, Lovecraftian, and even the Yellow mythos where all the writers kind of fed off each other. But them actually sitting down and having a writing group, which in my opinion would be one of the most badass things ever. But I don't think it actually happened. I don't know, but if you know otherwise, please let me know. Excuse me. Merrill says it was the name Randolph Carter that got her thinking, and that Club Zaquith is Clark Ashton Smith. She says Ulster Cats and Rats in the Malls are short stories. The psychedelic dope they call white powder is Arthur Machen. And there's a poem about people without heads and hands, which Lovecraft wrote himself. And she also puts together the Courtyard and the fungi from Yoggoth are also here. Then says that the whole thing with J. Edgar in the 1920s falls right into the horror at Red Hook and Shadow over Innsmouth. And she figures out every element in the case revolves around our boy, H.P. Lovecraft. Now, her looking all sexy as a punk rocker. This sad person, who is at least a sergeant in the FBI, says he's never heard of Lovecraft. Give me a break. Look how old this guy is. They probably had gym class together. He thinks the murders are done by some HP Trekkies. And Merrill says that this is big time. Look at all the weird porn. One's called Kunst des Ghouls, which is actually a spell in the Cthulhu mythos created by HP's young protege, Robert Bloch. And as with Pickman's Necrotica, it's been sexualized here as foreshadowing, I guess. Long story short, they look at a shipping address at some of the porn, and Merrill and Gordon take off and go undercover in Salem, Massachusetts, with Old Man Sarge saying, "Let's show the world we still know how to handle a witch trial." I'm not sure how to take that. Makes me angry, so let's just move on. We see Salem is also under a dome. Merrill connects Salem to Innsmouth, although it should be Arkham. And Moore actually admits to this mistake in a 2016 interview. But they're all versions of HP's fictional Salem, so whatever. Gordon says he's skimmed through HP and thinks the guy can't write. And yes, HP is an acquired taste and not for everyone, so I understand. Now, I don't know if an FBI agent fresh out of sex rehab would be getting butt naked in front of her married male partner like this. And fuck you, Gordon's wife is cool with this. Jesus. Well, if you can focus on the speech bubbles at this point, they're talking about the Necronomicon and how some people think it's real. Now, I'm going to try to break this down a little so I can understand it. The feds connect these murders to a series of raids done in the 1920s led by J. Edgar Hoover, and an actual picture of J. Edgar with some monster-looking person under a blanket. Then she says H.P. didn't even start writing until the late 1920s and early 30s. So he only got and he only got popular later. She stops before actually saying that H.P. based his writings on real occurrences. Because the series of weird raids happens, then Lovecraft wrote his stories about the things that actually happened there in Salem. Whoa. Now, the two are headed to an occult sex shop called Whispers in the Darkness, which is H.P.'s Whisperer in the Dark. They discuss sex and racism in H.P.'s work, or lack thereof. Lovecraft didn't really have sex or racism in his stories, but he was racist at the beginning, but then he ended up calling himself an ass for being racist to begin with. People grow, and this is an example of it. Sex in Lovecraft are just like dark little hints, like unnameable couplings and stuff like that. Well, alright, so they arrive at the sex boutique and think it's all some kind of new age role playing. They go in acting all happy, picking up an Arthur Katz album, and saying Carcosa recommended the store to them. Which to me is kind of risky because they have no idea who or what Nerlurthertip he is, but they drop his name anyways, saying they're looking for like-minded people. And I guess the shop owner falls for it. So, because he shows them the room in the back. And oh my God, there are squid parts and dildos everywhere. This is totally a Lovecraft sex fetish room. There are Cthulhu masks and vibrators with tentacle extensions. They say this is exactly what they had in mind and introduce themselves as Warren and Kate Franklin. The store owner's name is Leonard Beeks and says him and his wife live upstairs and they have get-togethers for genuine devotees. And they're invited tonight if they want to go. Well, they BS a little more with Merrill dropping a Cthulhu Fatagan relay and asking for a Kenneth Grant book. Now, he's a Thelemic magician, and he really knows his stuff, believe me. I'm actually trying to write a book on him and other magicians' work. But anyways, they leave with Merrill having a ton of occult books and only one dildo. Gordon wonders why she's running the occult angle and not the sex. She says she's covering every angle at this point. She says people like Aleister Crowley and Kenneth Grant took magic seriously like a science. And Grant thought Lovecraft's whole mythology was genuine in some way. And yes, it does get all crazy, like how Lovecraft and Crowley were writing about the same thing at the same time on different sides of the planet. And ancient Egyptian magic may be tapping into the same thing. Anyways, the shit gets real, but that's another video. She mentions how she dropped the Cthulhu Fatagan relay password and how that lucky guest got them the invite. Gordon says he's not comfortable with the whole thing, and why should he be? They're going into some sea people sex cult meeting. She says it's probably not an orgy, just some Lovecraft cult meeting. And it being their first meeting, it probably won't get too crazy. Plus, Old Man Perlman will know where they are. Also, they're armed, so what could possibly go wrong, huh? So, Gordon checks in with Perlman, and Merrill is going to read up about the Great Cthulhu until it's time. Well, it's after hours, and they arrive at the boutique. And this is a good place to stop. And I'll have the next part up real soon because I already have it written out. So thank you. Please leave a comment about whatever you thought. I want to get better at this. and I don't have many people to talk to, and I would like to hear the good and the bad about anything that I've said. I'm Born Medicated. Please like and subscribe.